really important because what we saw gives us enough of a jigsaw puzzle to show that there was definite political involvement at the ministerial level, that this was not driven by the civil servants, this was driven by, for example, Minister Chagger. But we don't know if there's actually trigger moments that made this thing go through because of the blacked out documents, so we need to see those. And I think it's an issue of the privilege of parliamentarians. That's what the debate's about, and privilege is an important thing. You cannot interfere with the privilege of parliamentarians to do their work. So I'm really surprised that this is going on in finance, because I have an enormous respect for the chair, Wayne Easter. Wayne and I go back a long time.
So one more question in the minute we have left. What now? What happens now? You said you're preparing for Monday. Is this just going to drag on?
It can't drag on, Roy. We've got work to do. So I think we're going to go back and see if we can untie this Gordian knot. We need to get this committee struck. It's either going to be committees that favors how the Conservatives want to do it, or we'll say to the Liberals, listen, you want a committee that's fair, you want to make sure it's done in a judicious manner, then give us something to work with here. But don't think you should get an easy ride, because you guys are the ones that caused this scandal. So, right, we're going to go in. I'm always positive. I always figure there's a solution, but we're going to get there one way or the other.
Good talking to you, Charlie, and you're always welcome to be the co-host of this show.
I love being my co-host. I'll come back another time.
All right,
next time.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Charlie. I was NDP member of Parliament, and we will talk music with Charlie because one of the songs on his new album is something that you will really appreciate, and we'll get into that more. But this issue with the Ethics Committee, the Finance Committee, and the filibuster by the Liberals just cannot be allowed to continue. And I don't know what's going on with the rumors, the suggestions that maybe a snap election is going to be called. That's just a rumor, folks. Don't go into the bank with it. It's just something that I thought I'd ask Mr. Angus about because I've seen some emails. We will come back with our good friend Michael Tobe, former speechwriter to Stephen Harper, and we're looking at Stay with us all. Work.
Edgewater, Leduc's only estate community. Larger lots, larger homes, and a larger lifestyle. Everything is large, but the price, starting from the 470s. Choose from triple car garages, walkout options, pond and green space backing homes, and home sites up to 54 feet wide. Edgewater, Leduc's only estate community. A master planned community with homes by award-winning builder Jamin Built. Visit their show home in Edgewater or EdgewaterLeduc.com. How long do you want to drive a car? Tirecraft can create a sensible maintenance plan to help keep your car on the road longer. Looking for a higher degree of safety? Ask one of our Tirecraft experts about Toyo tires, making great tires for 75 years, like the Toyo Observe TSI 6 winter tire. Plus, right now, get up to a $70 Visa prepaid card when you buy select sets of 4 Toyo tires. Tirecraft, real people servicing real life.
As a Desjardins agent, I understand how it seems like life is pulling you in all directions. Right, Antonella?
Yeah, career, house, teenagers, more fun, parents, winter tires, painting shed, raking leaves, raking more leaves.
Hey, Desjardins insurance agents can help you protect what's most important and plan for your future. So speak with a local agent about your life, home, and auto insurance. Visit DesjardinAgents.com and let's focus on you.
Oh, sweet.
Local news at 3:30. Good afternoon. I'm David Bowles. Right now at Edmonton, it is -6. The United Conservative Party government intends to press ahead with the plans detailed in the Fair Deal panel. That is from Premier Jason Kenney, who was speaking Saturday at the party's annual general meeting. Kenney says the provincial government he leads is serious about the of an Alberta police force.
Potential Alberta provincial pension plan. We are going ahead with the appointment of our own chief firearms officer. We are creating our own Alberta parole board, and so much more.
One of these tools, says Kenny, is an Alberta provincial plan, which he notes could be a powerful tool in their bag due to it being transferable to the rest of this country. Now, yesterday at the AGM, Cyprus Medicine MLA Drew Barnes called on the party membership to support a motion calling for the government of Alberta to collect its own taxes.
Alberta absolutely needs to collect its own personal and corporate taxes, like us. And further, our federal counterparts, the CPC, is in favor of Quebec collecting all of our share.
Barnes says Alberta should have the same We'll see some clouds tonight and a low of -10. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud and a high of -4. On Monday, warming up just a bit, we'll see a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 0. And on Tuesday, a mix of sun and cloud, the high 4. Right now in Edmonton, it's -6. I'm David Bowles. Next scheduled newscast at 4 o'clock on 6:30 CHED. The highest standards of broadcasting. It's what we strive for every minute of the day. To live up to your expectations is our goal, our obligation. And as members of the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, our promise is to be accountable to you, our listeners. If you have a comment to make about our programming, visit cbsc.com to find information on the council and its codes. A message from the Canadian Association of Broadcasters and 6:30 CHED.
At Biz Diamond, we're a proudly Canadian company. But to be honest, our wrist shot is pretty weak. We like maple syrup, but we have no idea how to make it. If we make cheese curds for protein, they probably wouldn't squeak at all. What we are good at is finding beautiful, ethically sourced diamonds at great value to meet any budget. And we're pretty nice to boot. To us, that's pretty Canadian. It's Diamond. Open now across the West Edmonton Mall with COVID safety protocols.
As an announcer, I lead a busy life. Talking, sitting, talking. I don't have time to learn about tires. So I asked my Toyota service advisor.
Hi, Dave.
Sarah, why did I come to you for tires?
Expertise. I can tell you which of our 17 brands of Toyota recommended tires is right for your vehicle. All at the right...
The bundle out. The first person here, his name is Lucas, and he's a self-described geek, which immediately gets my attention, but he's a cat person. I am deadly allergic to cats.
I think is what they're calling it. And for $500, you'll be assigned an hour at random as your donated hour. You'll be acknowledged on air as the donor of the hour, and you'll also get a tax receipt. So a couple of different ways to support the programming directly at CKUA. And of course, all the information on that and everything else can be found at the CKUA website, where you can also make donations, and that's at, of course, CKUA.
Take a step. Committees do their work. The independent committees do. We, for over hour after hour, with every possible denial and obfuscation, and no counter offers, no like say, okay guys, how do we work this out?
Charlie, I'm just sending people. One of those moments.
Especially the online dating, I think
We're calling for pharmacy and distribution.
It's important to maintain, some
How I'm going to get to Anaheim or then play the next day. So, I thought...
Democrats, 80% Republicans will accept the results. Stick on. Okay, that's the result. We'll go with that. But John said it's the 20% who will argue against it or will not accept the result. It would cause the problems. And so you're reading more and hearing more about potential conflict. 3.9 million firearms sold in the United States just in the month of June, according to the FBI. We're going to talk about what's going on in the U.S. right now. One of the most, I think, one of the best informed columnists, that's the way I know, Michael Told, columnist for Troy Media and Lundy Politics, a former speechwriter for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. How are you, Michael?
I'm good, Roy. Thank you for the very kind intro. I appreciate it.
Well, you've earned it. You certainly have. You've had a lot of information in a great way through all of the chicanes that are thrown in the way of the truth. So, yeah, let's talk about this U.S. election. And you start where you wish, Michael. We're just a couple of weeks away from the vote. What's got your attention most significantly right now?
Well, think what's actually kind of interesting is you look at various aggregators, including Real Clear Politics, who doesn't take a partisan slant in the sense of their polling. They just basically poll all the different polling companies, including Rasmussen, John Zogby, who you mentioned earlier, CBS, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, etc., and they just put them all together in their various combinations and try to sort of sort out where things are at. Right now, Real Clear Politics as an aggregator is showing Biden up by 9 points. I'm just actually looking at it right now. 51.3 to 42.3. So that's the average right now. Some are a little lower. Rasmussen has it at a margin of about 4 to 5. And some are much, much higher. I'm not sitting in front of it. I think CBS has about 12 or 13. But no matter how you slice it, we always knew that Donald Trump would lose the popular vote. The popular vote doesn't mean as much as the Electoral College in the United States in terms of the way to determine the next president. And as well, it doesn't always necessarily mesh. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. As we found out in 2016, for example, when Donald Trump lost the popular vote by nearly 3 million to Hillary Clinton, but won the Electoral College. Or the famous 2000 presidential election, which, as we know, which went to the Supreme Court, where again George W. Bush lost the popular vote but won overall. What I'm looking at right now, though, the key here is the Electoral College and the breakdown. And although Real Clear Politics correctly states that about 197 electoral seats are still toss-ups, which means that there's a lot of battleground states and a lot of areas where, yes, you have a little small margin of error lead for either Biden or Trump, depending on which state it is. Generally speaking, there's still a lot of people who are kind of floating around the idea of whether or not they're going to see a change and that there'll be a new president come November 3rd or November 4th or whenever it ends. If it goes to the courts, it might take longer. Or whether we're actually looking at a position where Donald Trump sort of performs a whole rigmarole and gets back to the 2016 result where he was way, way behind against Hillary Clinton with only a few days to go, and suddenly catches up and wins, which would put many polling companies, including our mutual friend Mr. Zogby, at a bit of an odd, because it would just mean that unfortunately some of the information they're putting out wouldn't be realistic. Right now, you'd have to bet that Joe Biden will win the election. I don't think it's going to be by this enormous margin people are talking about, but there's certainly enough there and enough movement, and we'll talk about some of it, for Donald Trump to make that 2016 comeback yet again 4 years later.
You know, my feeling is, and I called Donald Trump in 2016. I called him to win the election in January. But most people thought I was off my rocker. They still thought I was off my rocker when I called him in November. But my feeling is, my sense is, and a lot of this, Michael, is from what I hear from listeners in this country. If I say even one word that is challenging about Donald Trump, I hear about it. So my point is, I believe there's more passion, more significant passion among Trump supporters than there is among Biden supporters. And I wonder whether that could be the seesaw, whether the passion on one side could in fact outweigh the lack of passion or the reduced passion on the other side when it comes to actually getting out and voting.
Well, that's a fair analysis, and you're right, it certainly could. I also thought Donald Trump was going to win this election as well, but you and I both predicted this, Roy, before COVID-19, which is changed the...
You know, I was talking about predicting it in 2016, Michael.
Oh, in 16.
Yeah.
No, me too. I did as well, actually, because I noticed as well that things were starting to shift, and even though, obviously, James Comey hadn't spoken up at that point, which did cause a bit of a change, certainly of 5 to 6 points near the end of the election, and that maybe created a tipping point, along with Donald Trump's success in building a populist argument, doing extremely well in the Rust Belt states, etc. I think now what we're sort of seeing is that Trump is trying to call upon his little bit of magic again, and he's hoping that a lot of the people that currently he seems to be losing, the supportive groups that he really needs, and that includes, seniors, the Rust Belt region that I mentioned before, which includes like Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania. He also needs to hold on to bigger states. He's struggling right now in Texas. Texas is a state that a Republican needs to win the presidency and get back into the White House or move into the White House. Without it, there's loss. Texas, Pennsylvania, Florida has become a bit of a battle zone as well. It's been sort of moving back and forth. It's kind of hard to figure that one out right now. But if Trump cannot take those, even by narrow margins, his route to victory is almost impossible to actually do it, because he's going to get obviously slaughtered through the north. He's obviously going to lose bigger states like New York and California, but that was always understood. That's not been, Republicans have not done well since the days of Ronald Reagan in either state.
May I ask you just one question before it again slips into my brain and leaves before it gets to my mouth? What is it that is causing Donald Trump problems in traditionally Republican states? What is causing problems for Donald Trump in Texas, for example?
Well, Texas has changed quite a lot, and part of the reason Texas changed, and this has been discussed now for a few election cycles, the demographics have shifted quite a bit. For example, Hispanic voters who were somewhat more reliably Republican during the days of Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and into George W. Bush, the younger Hispanic vote is starting to slip back into the Democratic camp on a pretty heavy basis. That's been one problem. Hurricane Katrina also played a role in this too, because as you know, there were a lot of people who moved from Louisiana permanently, and they moved to states like Texas. They've done some studies on it. I forget some of the names of the academic studies, and they found that.
Well, we'll see. I hope that Donald Trump will win that election, because why America would go stupid otherwise? Unless majority is stupid. Bye.